Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. I'm going to do a video on random artist feature on a favorite of mine. They're called Ours. Ours is basically Jimmy Gnecco, this singer-songwriter and a hell of a vocalist and musician. And basically it's his band. He's had the band since he was in high school, or a form of one of his bands anyway. They have 5 full-length albums, I'm counting. Anyway, their first demo came out in 1994 called Sour. It was not under the name Ours. It was under, just looked it up. 2 different bands, The Lost Child and, I don't have it up now, and Harmony Bandits. But anyway, there was a lot of interest in signing them, like their music should be a certain way, and they just had to, they named the band Ours for that reason. Anyway, in 2001, eventually, after a lot of interest and a lot of waiting and refining, they put out the album Distorted Lullabies. As you can see, I've got 2 singles, I've got 1 single rather. I remember I got this through something I wanted or something like that. Anyway, Sometimes and I'm a Monster, which are 2 of the best songs they've ever written. It's just filled with songs, emotional vocals, falsetto wailing, like he wails like a banshee, as one description I read about him. And I discovered them in 2005 when Mike Portnoy was quoted as describing our singer as like Bono on steroids. And I'm a U2 fan, and actually I came to learn Jimmy Gnecco and Ours. Jimmy Gnecco is a very big U2 fan. But this album has a lot of really terrific tracks. Fallen Souls, Drowning, those 2 just, again, the emotional, singing and vocal lines and hooks still, and the energy. Here in the Light, or Here Is the Light rather, Misery Head almost has like I always think it's like almost an industrial element to it, but Medication, very powerful ballad of sorts. It kind of builds and crescendos. Meet Me in the Tower, that's kind of it's not an epic in terms of length, but it's got a good hook to it. The chorus does. I've played this album, I don't know, 150 times, especially in 2005 and 2006. So they followed up the next year, and they were on a major label, and there was a lot of pressure for them to put out another record soon after, and they even got pressured into recording a cover of Velvet Underground and Nico's Femme Fatale, but it's called Precious. This is the standard version, although this is a promo copy, as you can see. And then there's the advanced copy. This is the first one I got. And then I have... Did I not show it? I did. they have, Leaves, the song Leaves single, the CD single, and then Kill the Band. 2 are the best, again, like Distorted Lullabies, those are 2 of the best songs on the single. But I really enjoy a lot of this record. Not as much as Distorted Lullabies, but favorites being In a Minute, which a lot of people don't like. But I just, Dave Malone was the guitarist. I guess that came to, that's why they don't play In a Minute live very often, but it's kind of a rebellious song to it, lyrically especially. It's like sort of talking about how, don't put me in a box. You want me to be this way. I don't have to be. I could be that way if I wanted to, but I'm not going to be that way because I don't want to, and you can't make me. Basically, you're wrong, I'm right, and stop trying to make me something I don't want to be. Chapter 2, Mercy, has a little bit of a Middle Eastern element to it at points. Red Colored Stars, if I'm not mistaken, that's the last track. It talks about lyrically, there's a wall in my way, there's a war in my way. And then If Flowers Turn is almost power pop-ish. And I came to learn that Jimmy Gnecco is a fan of Jellyfish, and even covered Glutton of Sympathy live once, which I've never actually found, but I'd love to hear it sometime. It was at a show sometime in that period of time. But anyway, that was Precious. And Precious is not a favorite of a lot of fans as much as Distorted Lullabies, but it's a record that has grown on me, and even the songs I didn't like that much initially, I came to like more. Songs like Outside and Places and Broken specifically, and Femme Fatale, the Velvet Underground cover. So then it was a long time making their next record. That was after 2002. But they were working with Rick Rubin, although they also recorded, Jimmy recorded He was on one of the Never Ending White Lights albums, or two of them actually, before the next record. Tremendous song. One song, our final hymn, he actually would play live. And then he actually recorded a song for the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack. That was a couple years before. It was like 2003, 2004. I think I have a copy around here, but I don't know where it is. But that was the song he did was Someone to Die For, with Brian May of Queen, actually. So, in fact, at one point Jimmy's covered Bohemian Rhapsody, I believe. So, but anyway, in 2008, finally, after, even as a fan for a couple of years, it took forever, it seems like, came out Dancing for the Death of an Imaginary Enemy, which had the single Worst Things Beautiful, which a lot of the songs on this album were played live before they were recorded, of course, including Mercy Dance for the song Mercy. The song Mercy and the song Murder, or really Murder and Mercy, Murder/Mercy, were played live frequently, and it was kind of the belief that it would be recorded, and I don't know if they'll ever release it if they did that, as one, because it was really like one epic song, like 9, 10, 11 minutes, but I think the major label probably didn't want him, or they just didn't want, they preferred it separated and having Mercy as the first song on this album, but awesome song. Both Murder has this really unique thing, and I think it's with, if I'm not mistaken, trumpets. Anyway, but Live Again, Willing's really catchy. Live Again's very impassioned, just screaming just his lungs and his vocal cords out, not to the point of damage, but Saint and Lost. Saint is about Jeff Buckley, I believe. Saint Down the Hall was called live, but those two songs, I've always felt that when I first heard them, I loved them live. They weren't quite as good on the studio versions, but the studio versions I've grown to like more and more. Ran Away to Tell the World, terrific ballad, very memorable, and it has this cello part that's wonderful. Black, very lyrical. Moth was another one that live that I remember really liking and was excited when they put it on this album. And Get Up features among his work, his daughter sings this part that just says, "You more you love," and it kind of goes throughout almost the whole song, fades down and comes back. Anyway, that was Mercy in 2000. Mercy Dance for the Death of Imaginary Enemy in 2008. And after that, if I know what I did with it now, oh, here it is. They decided not to be on a major label anymore, Jimmy Gnecco specifically, and he put out a solo album called The Heart, and I actually have the single for The Heart over there, which I'm not going to be able to show right now. Maybe one day I'll just do my singles, but it was more stripped down songs, although a lot of his solo shows were like this. And some of these songs I had heard on like bootlegs and at shows and stuff like that, and live recordings, archive.org, and I'm sure YouTube and some of the other sites like Vimeo have a lot of this stuff. Like this, because a lot of Jimmy would just tour on his own, Jimmy Gnecco. But the song Gravity was one song, and Darling was another one that I had known, many fans had known. Among the highlights, though, on The Heart, the title track and Mystery. And I'll Bring You Home. That's the song I have the single for. I think The Heart was about his mother, because his mother passed away around this time, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, it's a good record, and I'm pretty sure I have the Redux version on CD that came out the year after, which has a slightly different track list, and a lot of these songs were re-recorded that were on this, re-recorded with the band, and sounded more like ours. One of them was not, though, on there. I think it was called The Bells, if I'm not mistaken, and it's just, the guitar riff is really heavy on that, and it's really, really almost technical. It's one of my favorite songs that he's done solo or whatever, recorded in recent years. So that was in 2010 and 2011. But then they had a Pledge Music campaign, and released independently again, like his solo album. Ballet the Boxer 1 came out in 2013. My favorite song, or maybe the most memorable track on this, being the song Sing, which I think is about Michael Jackson, but as you can see, here's the vinyl. And I like this record. I haven't listened to it addictively like the Mercy record or sort of Lullabies, I suppose, but it still has a lot of good songs on it. Although again, it felt like they almost did rush it out because they had the Pledge Music campaign, and I don't know, but I think overall it came out to be pretty good. Besides the song Sing, Boxer, the sort of like the title track, Get 'Em Out is a little funkier, a little different style for them. It wasn't really rock exactly. Pretty Pain is catchy. Devil was the first single, the video, which I think it was inspired by his experience he did with David Carradine from The Legend, Kung Fu The Legend Continues. I know he did I think he was in that video, and that was the last thing that David Carradine did, or there was like a movie that Jimmy was, I forget what it was, but there was a connection to David Carradine, and I think of David Carradine with the song Devil, but it's kind of a psychedelic, dark ballad. And Fall Into My Hands is another one of the highlights on this album. Very epic, kind of emotional, one of the classic Jimmy Gnecco falsettos. But anyway, that's it for ours. More random artist features are coming up and some other stuff, but thanks for watching.